Welcome to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. We interview great guests who inspire you to overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Be sure you visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, just relax as you listen. You can do something else, but be ready to make an important note. And let's get started.
The title of this podcast interview is Craig Lewis Paid a Severe Price for Happiness. You can pay less. He will share with you so that you do not have to suffer the consequences for choosing to radically heal yourselves. And if you choose to face your shadow and the self-immolation that comes with it, then maybe, just maybe, you will create a better life for yourselves. Yes, and that is quite a setup. And quite frankly, I've interviewed all sorts of people with the gamut of psychology and business. Not only the gamut, but very diverse and myriad. And I've never had a guest like Craig on the podcast, so it's very awesome. And I mean that truly, because first of all, both punk rockers, right? And that was one of the things that attracted me to him. I mean, as a matter of fact, I saw that he was a punk rocker on Facebook, and then I saw that he was into psychology, and which of course I am. So those two things, I really immediately attracted to him. But the more I got to learn about him, I was like, wow, holy smokes! But he's an incredible person. And he has such a story to tell, and people there are and it's pretty radical, quite frankly. And I'm sure there are going to be a number of people who relate to it, and that's another reason why I have him on, is because he's going to get into some gritty and not necessarily graphic, but really maybe disturbing, maybe not, maybe that's an appropriate word. But he's gonna let you know the real deal, and this is not going to be this is a PG podcast, not because it's going to be graphic, but it's very gritty. He's going to get really real about the terrible suffering that occurs out there and how he faced himself and began his healing process and continues to heal. And so we're going to talk about the book that he published, how it can help others, and a number of other things. But I wanted to say, 95% of my audience listens to the podcast and 5% watches on YouTube. Craig is his video is not coming through, so you can only see me on YouTube. And the reason why that is that he's not in the United States. Craig, can I say where you are?
I'm in Mexico.
He's in Mexico. He's in like rural Mexico. Not like he is. And his connectivity is not so great. So we shut off his video to have a better connection. So I don't get to see him. He's a good looking guy, actually. And I say that very heterosexually. Relax, Craig. I
am relaxed more than you know.
But so it's just me on the YouTube, but that's fine, and we adapt, and we're gonna get into this to why I laughed about that. But after I tell you the quick biography of Craig Lewis. And Craig Lewis is a human being, unlike myself, who learned the hard way the difference between being alive and truly living. Craig believes that if you do the personal work that you need to, whatever that work may be, you will experience improvements. Hallelujah, man. Having lived in Mexico now for nearly 3 years, Craig is successfully making progress in experiencing greater degrees of inner peace. He recently published both, quote, The Craig Lewis Guide to Surviving the Impossible. And I love that. That was the title I was going to go with the podcast, because that's actually in your email, Surviving the Impossible, which I love. But that's the name of his book, which is The Craig Lewis Guide to Surviving the Impossible. And also, You're Crazy, Volume 2. So the title of the other book is You're Crazy, Volume 2. And he finds happiness in growing roses, loving cats, I love that, and doing whatever he wants. Overall, we're going to be talking about some really cool stuff. With all that out of the way, welcome to Craig Gregorio, as they say in Mexico, Lewis.
Hello, my friend. I'm very happy to be here. You're correct. I'm a little bit different than a lot of other people, and I just have to own that my inner maniac also is my outer life. So nice to meet you. Thanks for having me, and I'm ready to go with you and do this awesome journey. And I thank you from my heart for including me on your podcast and your community.
You're quite welcome. And that's going to be a perfect segue to my first question, which Craig suggested I make, because I wouldn't ask this ordinarily, but I think it's very pertinent. By the way, Craig and I have been speaking for months about this interview, months, perhaps half a year, perhaps. And so that leads me to my first question: is Craig, why are you so friggin' difficult?
And see, it's not like I didn't know exactly what question you were about to ask when you started giving your opening to how you were going to ask this question, because because the truth is that everyone knows me in a certain way,
Yeah,
and they all know me in the way that I'm difficult.
yeah,
And why am I difficult? It's just because certain things happen to me
right,
throughout my life that just destroyed me,
right,
and then I fought like tooth and nail to dig myself up from a prison of a pit, right? And then I got there, and then everything was taken, and I collapsed, and I had to do it again, but without help. And so I became a little bit fucked up, and very much like focused on my survival. And most people don't understand what that means, especially in the context of the severity of traumas that I experienced as a young person, and my lack of protection from those vulnerabilities, even as a grown adult in the here and now. And that's kind of like I'm the result, or I'm the culmination of fighting through everything to get to where I'm at today, which brings me to people like you who recognize that something really powerful is occurring, but a lot of people don't have the patience or the stamina or the willingness to get through my vetting process. Because if you don't get through the vetting process at the get-go, you sure as fuck ain't gonna be with me as I continue up the ladder to success and doing awesome things in the world. So you've already passed the test, Tony, and so that is the answer to everybody as to why I am so freaking difficult. And so that's it. That's my story. That's why
that's
I'm
great.
difficult
That's
for a
awesome.
reason.
And again, I'm not repeating myself. I'm just complimenting. What I said initially is I think that a lot more people relate to you than might be expected, because the truth is that a lot of people, young people, children, and even all younger people, but what happens to us in our formative years is the most influential on a child as they grow into adulthood. And there's a lot of trauma and terrible stuff, crimes, that is very ugly to even talk about, even think about. And those things are very consequential. And Craig has addressed them in a public way, in a healing way, and put it out there so that other people can learn from him or be helped by him. And that is awesome, my man. That is awesome, because that shit goes on way too much than it should. And people need help, man. And you're helping people by saying what happened to you. And, not in a whiny crybaby way, but in a way that is honest about your pain and your hurt, man. And the terrible things that you dealt with. And people who relate to this, and I bet there's a lot more than people realize, they could benefit from your message and from your, I'm not your tips and techniques, but your message and your basic attitude and what you've got to say. And so I'm very glad that you're exactly where you are, my friend, and that we've connected and we're talking about it.
Thank you, my brother. First I want to say that I love crazy people, and we're the best people on earth, and everyone else is pretty much a waste of time. And I'm so glad that we've all, if you're listening to this, then you've as up till now you've survived the pandemic, and if you relate with what me and Tony are talking about, then you are already part of the six, you know, I don't know, half a billion people who had already survived the what the world became this global mental hospital. People like myself and perhaps Tony were already the survivors of that. So that's why we can thrive in these moments and talk about these things and have these conversations, and why people will listen.
I've been called many things throughout my life, and I think I'm a little older than you. I'm 56. Undoubtedly, crazy has been the most common term applied to me, and I got into recovery. That was the most pivotal thing in my life. I'm sober a very long time now, but then my personal development really began to take traction. I started walking the walk as opposed to talking the talk. So I'm all about personal development, but I still, I do things and I'm still me, but I'm the better me. I'm always striving to be the better me, the better version. And now I consider myself, well, I'm more and more functional. And that's a primary thing I did when I was a life coach, personal development coach. I help people go from dysfunctional to functional, help them achieve goals. But I'm what you would call, if you would, a good crazy, where I do things my own way, but I don't hurt people. And I consider bad crazy is the same. You do things your own way, you have your own view, but you are harmful. So that's a distinction I make. So I think we're probably in the same tribe of good crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I've often talked about how good crazy is awesome, and how anyone who is so like deluded to think there's anything wrong with me that's not like deeply good is actually freaking crazy. But they're not good crazy, they're bad crazy. They should go far away from me, like I got far away from them with their craziness.
Friggin' A, Brad. Let's get into the first thing I mentioned about the title that I was going to use, and it was one of your titles. Not the title that we went with, the former one about how you can help people pay less of a severe price for happiness. But let's start off with talking about surviving the impossible. What do you mean by surviving the impossible?
Well, I'm 47 years old. When I was 14, my parents manipulated a psychiatrist to give me a diagnosis of schizophrenia, for which he knew I did not have. And then I spent 28 years taking approximately 80,000 psychiatric pills that I swallowed until I was 41 years old, for a series of mental health conditions that I never had. Yet I became quite sick due to the ingestion of 80,000 psychiatric drugs for a condition I never had. And thankfully, in 2013, I was able to
Yeah, the
obtain
average
my.
person, Craig, the average person only takes 40,000. You've doubled that. I'm kidding. Go on.
Well,
I mean, I just made,
perhaps.
one of the things, excuse me, one of the things that it's like I have a proclivity for is making light because of the helping talk about especially heavy subjects. And this is obviously a very heavy subject. So when I make a little joke, it's not out of disrespect. It's just my way to lighten it so that it's more bearable and accessible by people, and they don't get, bogged down by the heaviness of it. So I mean, absolutely no disrespect when I say that.
You talk like a punk rocker when we all would hang out when we were younger and doing whatever we were doing, and people just spoke up. So I actually didn't think twice. I'm in my little zone.
Okay, very good. Please continue. 80,000 psychotropic drugs.
Yeah. And in 2013, while I was a employee of the Department of Mental Health, after working in mental health for years as a certified peer specialist in Massachusetts, and I obtained my childhood medical records because I was working as a trainer of Department of Mental Health staff as a vetted CEU trainer, and I obtained my medical records, and it's basically said in a nutshell that my then employer also, when I was their ward and I was a child, had a filing cabinet full of documents that stated that when I was a child in their care, that I was fraudulently given a diagnosis of schizophrenia. And then, well, at that point, 26 years later, I had in my hands the evidence that said everything that ever happened to me since I was a kid was locked away in a filing cabinet in a building I had an office in. And yeah, it was pretty fucked up, as you can imagine. And thanks to heavens, by 2015, with the evidence in my hand and some very ethical psychiatrists, if you can believe that they exist, they found me, and they insisted that if I didn't stop taking the pills, that I would not ever have a chance of getting better, which I know is a completely insane thing for most people to hear, because we hear the opposite and nothing but the opposite. Well, there's a reason why I don't publicly disclose the names of those doctors, because I don't want them to have a hard time, because they saved my life. With that said, in 2015, May 1st, I took the last pill, and ever since then, I've been on this insane journey, which actually is the journey for sanity, which is what I'm slowly achieving, to get better. And if you can imagine every effed up thing that could happen in 28 years to a person who's been made sick, forced to live in a sick person's body, forced to be known as a sick person, self-identifying as a sick person, who does the work to get better, then gets off the drugs while already working as a mental health worker and having success, having published a book that to this point in time was my prior book called Better Days, a mental health recovery workbook that to this point in time has sold 10,000 copies. And then to have your whole world collapse again once you get off these psychiatric drugs because you told the world that you got better. And then a whole sort of, I guess, converging of horrible things happen because nobody wants the kid who for 28 years was taking the pills that psychiatry and big pharma said, oh, you need to take, whose family said you need to take. Everyone believed this whole crazy thing was happening because that's what it looked like, because that's what it was.
All right,
so then all of a sudden,
Craig,
just real quick, just to all of a sudden have to then have everything change. It was intolerable for the world, for the people on the right, for the people on the left, for my friends, for people who didn't like me.
That was part of
everybody.
That was part of your impossibility.
It was impossible.
Yeah.
Dude, yes, impossible. Because what happened then was everything.
It was such a conundrum for you. I mean, you were just like, you were screwed every way you turned.
Yeah, I was screwed in every way I turned from everyone. Nobody wanted anything to do with a miracle. A miracle that was proven via their own documents.
All right, we know this is such a huge topic. I'm going to stop for a commercial break because we're going to be getting into this stuff, brother. And I'm sure the audience, if they can relate to this stuff at all, is riveted because this is quite a story. All right, so let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with Craig Lewis in Surviving the Impossible.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Proficio. When people learn something, they want to use it so it has real value. And the best teacher is experience. Visit www.proficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where Proficio will have you taking action with what you're learning immediately. You'll be closer to your goals before you even realize it.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast with me, your host, Tony Petrozza, and I'm here speaking with Craig Lewis. We're talking about surviving the impossible. I just interrupted him in the middle of his story of surviving the impossible. He's talking about afterwards when he stopped taking the drugs. Well, let me ask the first question about this, and maybe you can continue with your momentum, but right off the bat, what happened when you stopped taking psychiatric drugs after 28 years? Craig,
what happened physically? What happened physically? What happened mentally? What happened socially?
Yep.
All happened in different ways. Yeah. Well, I let's start by saying this. For the first time in years, mosquitoes bit me.
That's great. So
Can you
so
appreciate?
you were
Yeah.
regretful. You regret it. You went back to him because of the mosquitoes. That is wild.
Well,
Man. That is wild.
well, if mosquitoes didn't want to land in me and suck my blood
That's incredible.
for years,
Yeah, you were so
how,
polluted.
how, I was so toxic in my blood, polluted, correct, that you can appreciate that it was then that I realized that people didn't want to know me properly or get too close to me because I repelled them
Yeah.
by what was in my blood.
Mm.
Because if mosquitoes knew to not land on me because my blood would be bad for them, what the fuck was going on with human beings?
The mosquitoes were smarter than the psychiatrists.
Oh, I mean, psychiatrists are very smart at making money.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
quite frankly,
You know, you could be.
I mentioned that I'm in sobriety. I'm basically an anti-drug person, but there's a time and place for it. For me, it's sort of a last resort. It doesn't necessarily have to be a last resort. I'll give you an example. My girlfriend, she takes a whole bunch of prescription drugs. I take no drugs whatsoever, unless it's a last resort. And I'm not going to, I'll take an aspirin if a headache doesn't go away after a little while. But basically, I don't like to put anything into my system that I don't have to. But they have their purpose, their benefits, and they can even be miraculous. But but we are in a severely over-medicated, over-prescribed society, and you are, I mean, the epitome of it. And now you went against all the medical advice, and you said, "That's it. These drugs have been the destruction of me. They haven't been the savior of me." But now you've had to deal with all these issues, both that were there before the drugs and there as a result of the drugs. What's going on, man?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm sitting right now on my terrace fighting off my neighbor's cat because she insists on invading my house and eating my cat's food. It's a constant battle.
Craig and I are both cat lovers.
Oh, I'm a cat lover. Yeah, for sure. I'm sitting on my terrace. There's some birds flying by. I'm looking at mountains.
Okay,
and what is
all
today?
right. That's great. I mean, I
February?
love that present description, but I'm talking about, you had a horrendous situation and you were basically numb from reality because of the drugs. But then when you came off that numbness, you stopped poisoning yourself with them. Then you had to deal with the reality, but with greater consequences. That's what I'm talking about now. So what's that about?
Yeah. Well, I learned to live in the moment. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
said,
you're right. You're right, though. Let's get this done here. Right. What happened was the world did not know how to handle a Craig who was not able to be identified as sick if there was an issue. I know that might sound so like a petty thing to say, right? So trivial, right? Why would you say such a weird thing? But for my entire life, the answer to everything that went wrong was Craig's not healthy. And then the world and my world, the people surrounding my world, had to contend with the reality that all of a sudden, every single thing you know about this guy, every interaction you had with him, everything you know about him, and everyone you know who knows him has been was experienced under conditions that in no way allowed for a healthy connection or relationship, which then results in a interruption in all sorts of relatively good connections because nobody knows what to do when you say what you experience when you are me. When you say that these insane things happened that are against everything that the system says is supposed to happen, that they say everything is not supposed to happen this way when men's mental health. Why don't men ask for help, right? When they say, here's what we should do for suicide prevention. I'm like, yo, I'm right here. like this is like everything was about mental illness, and nobody wanted to hear about somebody getting better after a lifetime of everyone who's a professional being wrong,
You know what that makes me,
as documented in their own handwriting at the very beginning, meaning every single person throughout the whole experience was part of that. That results in a life collapse, and that is exactly what happened. A life collapse.
so I mean, what point was that collapse? Was it right after you stopped taking the drugs, or and what was it?
See,
And what was the
two,
effect of that collapse, as opposed
two,
to, continuing with the drugs?
two, two pivotal things happened. One, I um, I went to Europe in the autumn of 2015 to present my work for the first time.
Yeah.
And in Riga, Latvia, after I presented at the first conference I ever presented in Europe, which is called the European Conference on Mental Health, those people who organized it went on to be massively important people in my life. I'm alive today in part thanks to them.
I remember speaking to you about that last year, and you were very well received there.
Yeah, thank you. They're my homies. They're also punk rockers from back in the day, so we have that in common too. But after the conference in Riga, Latvia in 2015, the woman who was with me at the time, because as I said previously, mosquitoes started biting me just like people, if you will. All of a sudden, I didn't know how to deal with anything. And so I had a partner with me on this crazy trip to Europe. And we went into a sauna. And in that sauna, my body poisoned itself by releasing compounded neurotoxins from my fat cells, and I basically had a brain injury while naked in a sauna in Riga, Latvia, 6 months after I stopped taking the medication.
Wow.
That's part one of the pivotal moments. Part two, excuse me, there's a cat fight right next to me, but I'm not going to get up and
look who just jumped on my lap, Craig. You can see my favorite cat, Lucius.
See. I can't see, but I will now look. There's Lucius.
Yeah, Louis.
And
Louis is my boy,
and
my prince.
This cat to my left is named Gatita Namero Dos, and this other cat is the neighbor's cat, and they're just fighting for no reason. The second pivotal thing that happened is during the time period when I was finally getting off medication. I was working as a mental health worker, and a coworker of mine. Just mind you, I had worked for 10 years as a mental health worker, so I took my work very seriously. I was good at what I did.
But
I already published a book.
LCSW? I'm not sure.
No, I was a peer specialist. Like, I'm a street kid. I fought my way up from the street to get any sort of anything.
A peer specialist. And what precisely is a peer specialist?
It's a person who has lived experience with mental health experience, trauma, or addiction.
Right.
I was a big part of this community. I wrote a book called The Better Days Mental Health Recovery Workbook. The letters after my name on the front cover say CPS. That means Certified Peer Specialist. And throughout my whole journey of attempting to get better in the mid 2000s, when I first started going to therapy and getting some help, I found out about a program to train me to become a professional mental health worker, which is this thing called a Certified Peer Specialist. And it basically meant I would work as a mental health worker with the same responsibilities as I did as a social worker or whatever, as far as doing right by the people you're paid to help, right? And ultimately in 2015, I was an eyewitness to a colleague of mine doing things that he shouldn't be doing to the people that were in our care, and I, by law, was required to report it, and so I did. And so this is the pivotal thing number two. That first, I was extremely vulnerable after a lifetime of not being being drugged, and all of a sudden being in the world,
right,
and having problems with my ability to cope with stuff because it was everything. And then I had this. Of course, I went to a sauna, which really fried me, and I'll speak about that in a second. But the second pivotal issue was that I reported to who? To the Department of Mental Health. Who's the Department of Mental Health? The same people who I just obtained my medical documents from 2 years earlier, that said the whole entire time I was working for them, and as a child, and all these years, I was taking drugs for a condition that they documented themselves in their building and their filing cabinets that I never had. So you can appreciate that when I made my report, well, ain't nothing happened. Didn't matter what I witnessed. Didn't matter that I was doing my job as a professional.
It's awful, man.
I was I guess I don't want to say decapitated because I'm talking to you right now. I don't want to say my feet were cut off because I can walk, but on the inside, when I realized that I was basically being faced with the same thing twice, except the first time I was a victim, and the second time I was being victimized for doing for getting to that point in time to say, no, I have a power now to say we can't do these things to people. So they got me, dude. That happened right after I started taking the psych drugs. So my life collapsed, and people are angry at me. There were people angry at me for telling the truth. There were people angry at me for getting off of psych drugs. My family's angry at me. They gave me an ultimatum. They said,
Right.
if you don't stop talking about what happened to you as a
you
child.
You have that, I'm not going to call it bad luck because that's not a good word.
No, I don't believe in luck, dude.
Yeah.
No such thing as bad luck.
I totally concur. But you have had a really difficult life, and and for things to go your way, you must really be grateful for it because they haven't so often. And that's really awesome, man, that they are now. But man, you've had it rough. I don't say that.
Yeah.
I don't say that to overly sympathize with you, but just to, convey my view. And I don't have sympathy for you. I have empathy for you.
Good. I don't want your sympathy.
Well,
But
you're
empathy,
not getting it.
thank you.
Good. So we're good.
Good. We'll go good then. Well, fuck you then. We'll just move on. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
I'm not great. No, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Okay. All right.
With Craig Lewis. Great stuff.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Proficio. What is the key to wealth? It's not just making money. It's not wasting it. Avoiding debt and costly mistakes. To get the wealth mindset, visit www.proficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where you can start acting like a millionaire instead of just dreaming to be one.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast with me, your host, Tony Petrozza, having an excellent conversation with Craig Lewis. And we're talking about surviving the impossible. And we're talking about him the last thing we touched about is him witnessing a crime and then reporting it. And he was faced consequences from reporting it. Not only nothing happening, but now he's dealing with the consequences. He's dealing with no justice and being a kind of whistleblower. And now he's between a rock and a hard place. So it's rough. It's rough, man. And, he's striving to personally develop because he's coming out of this drugged life. And it's been a while. How long have you been off the drugs at this point?
It's going to be 7 years.
I mean, not at this
years.
point, but in this point in the story about, when you had reported what you saw.
Dude. Oh, same fucking time.
Okay.
Oh, come on, man. Come on. I was the weakest and most vulnerable I've ever been in my entire life.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, and I watched, I listened to your interview last week with Joan of Angels, right?
Oh, she's great.
So she sees out. Yeah. So I watched my own life burn down, dude. I swear to God. I'm like, I watched my life catch on fire, and I'm outside of the fire with everyone looking at it. They're like, oh, that house is on fire. I'm like, yeah, stop standing around. That's my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look at the flames. I'm like, no, come on. Don't just stand around and look at it. Grab the fire extinguisher. What the fuck? Everyone's oh, look, the blaze is it's just so hot. I'm so mesmerized by the fire. And that was what happened, dude.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And I watched my own life burn to the ground, being like, hey, what the fuck? Where's all my people? and like I just explained like before our commercial break, thanks to our sponsors, that that's what happened. Like I was like, everything just went away. Like
So
everything.
at the risk of sounding like a cliche, you had nowhere to go but up, which is not even true. You could still went deeper, but you were at this point in your life where it was just, really horrendous. And what did you say to yourself? I have an idea what happened, but we got to talk so that the audience can understand what happened and what you did.
Well, I was introduced to spirituality, and during this time period, because before that I didn't believe anything, and then I was this raw person who was vulnerable, and I had to learn how to protect myself from things that I didn't even know existed because I was drugged for so long. I had no idea. So I attracted like EVIL. I attracted like people who were dangerous and predatory because I was a grown man who was increasingly looking good, who was increasingly like obviously smart, creative, had tons of things going for him, very unusual. And so I attracted them by the truckloads. And so I had to face that. You know what I'm saying? I had to face all that evil without being protected. And so when you just said a minute ago, you have neither nowhere to go but up. I could have gone even worse down.
Right.
I actually went up. I went up.
Excellent.
And you want to hear what I did to actually specifically?
Yes.
All right. Yes. Hey, you know that comedian, also like game show host named Steve Harvey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. So this guy's funny. Like I heard he has some sort of thing happening. I don't know, but what I do know is that he's funny, right? But he's actually really smart about spirituality. Like I don't care about his comedy. I care about what he talks about when he talks about spirituality. And so somebody had sent me this link, a YouTube link of him during an outtake of what is it, the Family Feud? I guess it was, right? Family Feud, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it was, I don't know the shit, something like
that.
And he does this outtake and he says something like, sometimes when like everything's going, I'm paraphrasing, excuse me, like everything's fucked up and going wrong, you just have to jump. It was specifically talking about like taking a leap of faith.
Right.
You have to jump. And I was like, well, I mean, everyone freaking hates me. My family doesn't want to talk to me. No one will hire me because they think I'm some sort of whatever. I don't know. You think I'm all this shit. Like my friends, like nobody wants me. Nobody wants me. Like no one's gonna hire me. Like done. I'm fucking done. There's nothing for me here. And then by the time I was like, people trying to get me fired from other jobs, people went after my shit, went after my work. It's crazy what people do when they don't like you, man. People are crazy in this world sometimes. I don't want to be bad crazy. I don't like that. I want to do good things. People didn't, I don't know. But I said, well, I have to jump. I'm going to do what he says. I'm going to do this because, I mean, he has a story, right? He just took a leap of faith. I was like, oh, well, I believe. Like, doesn't have to be religious, right? I can say the word God. I can just talk about the universe, like the reason why we're alive. To call it, don't have to denominate it some sort of like give it some sort of religious, just spirituality, believe, do something. So I said, okay, I'm gonna jump. And I found out that I was gonna lose my home, lose my cat, and lose my everything. Or go into a homeless shelter in the middle of the winter in Salem, Massachusetts. I said, fuck no. I ain't burning to the ground here. I am jumping. So I bought a one-way ticket and I went up, just like you said at the beginning of this question. I went up into the sky with a backpack and a suitcase. And I landed in Paris, France. And I went directly to the place of the person who I was staying at their place. And then 3 days later, I was living with a partner. And then a month later, I was living in a squat with a bunch of African men who came across the Mediterranean on rafts to find a better life, squatting in an abandoned building. And I spent an entire year, more or less, throughout Europe trying to find my way. So that's what I did when I decided I could either let myself choose the path of darkness or I could go up. And so I took that leap of faith, just like Steve Harvey said. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to jump, and that's what I did. And I jumped. And I landed in Europe, and
that was a hell of a jump, man. That's 3,000 miles over the ocean.
Yeah,
that's great, man.
And I went to nearly every country in Europe. I mean, I either went to them
I mean,
Yeah,
so
I spoke.
you were doing the
Yeah.
hostel thing. I mean, what did you do?
No, dude, yeah, sometimes like
Sometimes.
hostel means you have money, right? Like, listen,
Oh, you're
listen.
more of the squats.
I did whatever I had to do.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
Now, just to clarify this, because I know what the next question is, because I sent them to you, so I'm just gonna like kind of set you
Oh
up for
yeah,
it, right?
the joke's on you. I
Yeah,
mixed up the order.
yeah. So the next question, I know what it is. So before I ended up where I am today, um, I went through this year-long process of not knowing what I was going to do, where I was going to go, knowing I wasn't safe back home because people were angry at me. Like I got angry at everybody who didn't do right by me because I was like, "Don't you understand? Like I've been victimized. Like I know I went crazy. I'm begging for money. I'm begging for help. I'm saying yes, crazy things. Well, I wasn't talking trash. I was telling the truth. I said the truth about what happened to me. I'm sorry I went so extreme, but what the fuck? I was desperate. And so, you know what I'm saying? I spent a year with nothing, trying to find my way, knowing I could not go back, thinking I had to find a new way to live. So I spent a year traveling around the world. And in Europe, I went to 30 different countries and I presented workshops or presentations like in punk rock squats or in cafes or getting paid, $600 a 3-hour workshop training mental health workers like I did 15 times in the Netherlands or 4 times in Ireland, or in Sweden or in Denmark or in France or in Belgium. The list goes on. You know what I'm saying? That's what I did while I was homeless in Europe, trying to find my way.
I mean,
So
yeah, so
sometimes I said, yeah,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you were on a tour. People were recognizing your merit, your value, and what you had to offer. So
yeah,
it's awesome, and
yeah,
it says so much about you. But what I want to get into some of the grittiness, though, and some of the not the techniques, but you're basically transforming yourself. So I mean, you mentioned spirituality. Well, let me ask, what does spirituality mean to you? A person that has your background and what you went through, what does it mean to you? Because you could have easily thought that God had cursed you, right? And so what, did you think that?
Well, I mean, you have to believe that things like that exist, like the CURSE.
Yeah.
So if I don't want to go there
Okay. So
because,
you don't even go
you
there.
know, no, I mean, we can have the conversation, right? Like, yeah, we'll have that conversation. But like, I don't entertain. I know you're just like, you're building up the question, right? But I don't entertain that those things even happen because I can't spend any time on that.
Right.
Like,
No.
maybe, yeah. But
I
like,
mean that
what?
this is
Yeah,
I say it sincerely. So and then
yeah. I know you. Yeah,
you gave me a great answer. That you don't entertain
yeah.
that notion. There was no curse. That's ridiculous. That's not maybe it's okay for some people to consider that, but for you don't entertain it at all. You can't afford it. You don't even think about that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. So what is
And
your okay, go on.
yeah, no, yeah. You're asking me the specific question, like, what does spirituality mean to me?
Exactly.
And it means that somehow, for reasons that I can't explain, but are inexplicable in any other way other than by describing my life as purposeful and that for a reason.
Yes.
Because how is it? Like I recognize the immense complexity of what I am and what how I became and what had to happen. And I understand that the world can't really handle that. I understand that a lot of people don't know what to do with someone who's just like, yep, like over it, like no thanks with your bullshit. Like I'm different, and I'm different for a reason. And my spirituality is knowing that only a person who has been somehow like I guess, destined, if you will, to I don't want to sound like a crazy person. Like, I mean, listen to me right now, right?
Oh, don't start now, Craig.
Right, excuse me,
I
right?
see that tongue in cheek.
Yeah. It's no, I'm actually saying it less tongue in cheek. People like, because that's what people. Okay, so yeah, like, what other explanation?
Yeah.
Can there be?
Yeah, totally. Man.
There's no other explanation. I don't have to attribute it to to a specific God, because what is God? God existed before religion. Like
course.
people
God
sat and
exists.
prayed.
God
and,
exists despite religion.
well, yeah, and religion. What is religion? It's a
Set of beliefs.
intentionally created set of beliefs, but are actually laws, because if people don't have laws, they thought they wouldn't be able to handle themselves. So like this God is whatever you want it to be. And spirituality is, for me, and I hope for many others, is knowing that you exist for a reason, and that at any point in time, if you choose to, you can stop whatever madness is happening by choosing to do better. That we actually are so connected to the source of where we all come from, that everything that happens to us is forcing us to get to that point, to become the revolution we were born to be. But you cannot be that revolution if you don't go through the battle for that fight, for that victory. So that is what spirituality is. That's what we all experience, but most of us don't recognize that the challenges that we're being faced with are shown to us, so we can ascend to who we were born to be. And I am one person, perhaps not everyone is like me, and I think that's true, and that's okay, who already knows why he is here today. I know why all those things happened to me, and it made me who I am, and I'm not going to have any regrets about it. Well, whatever decisions I made to get here, I'm going to be grateful that I'm here right now. And if I die tomorrow, so fucking what? Because that's why when you asked me a minute ago, like, where you at? I said, well, I'm enjoying my time.
Right.
I'm out on my terrace. Like, I can see the mountains, and the
it's so-
birds are flying,
it's
but that's
so-
what I'm talking about.
And
Yeah.
your point well taken. But I totally concur. And lately, the last few years, I've really come to believe more all the time that everything happens for a reason, and a good reason. I didn't believe that before. I believed there was too much chaos, but now I'm seeing a bigger picture. And a primary reason why is because I'm a Stoic. I'm studying Stoicism, and
See,
and it's that it talks about providence, that everything was supposed to happen for you to get to the next better place. And I really believe that now because of a series of events that I experienced, and you have just told how you've come to the same conclusion, and that's wild. And I also talk about spirituality. For me, the essence of spirituality is forgiveness. And if that's not the essence of spirituality for you, then I would be shocked, because what you've been through, you have to be an extremely forgiving person, in order to do well, because obviously grudges and resentments are yokes around your own neck. So I have no doubt of that. But you started a new topic here, and I want to stop for a commercial break, and then we're going to get right into it. And you mentioned the word revolution, and we're going to get into that next, right after we come back with this word from our sponsor.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Proficio. What if there was a self-improvement program truly personalized to you, that knew and cared for you deeply? That whatever was going on in your life adapted for you perpetually. Visit www.proficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where you can start a program that will always suit you, considering all the pressures and nuances of your life.
Listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast with me, your host, Tony Petrozza. We're talking to Craig Gregorio Lewis. I want to get both names in there, so he's found more easily. And we're having an incredible conversation about two punk rock, spiritual, psychological guys, mashing it up. I think this is a riveting conversation. I mean, I'm not going to say stream of consciousness, because I wanted to get in some gritty stuff, but there's been no need for that, because the tapestry that Craig has been weaving is beautiful as it is. I try to get in some guidance, because I have a structure, but he really hasn't needed it from me, because the discourse has been so organic, and I really love it. Really, you've been a great interview subject, Craig. I really appreciate it. But let's get to my next question. What does personal revolution mean to you?
Page 40 from the Craig Lewis Guide to Surviving the Impossible. This passage is called Revolution Comes from Within. Pardon me, let's take two. Revolution comes from within. Paris, France, 10:59 a.m., March 2018. I am surrounded by survivors from a dozen nations. Everyone is wonderful here, truly. This building is home to 24 broken hearts, all of whom have chosen to live. A young man who has recently witnessed ultimate horrors said to me, "We're all brothers here." He and his brother offered me space to join them, sleeping on a queen-size mattress, and I did. People who have experienced their world being demolished understand the world in ways that not all do. It is not hard to feel the energy of liberty in this revolutionary space. 24 broken hearts, united by something there are no words to describe, ain't just c'est bon, c'est magnifique. Paris, France, 11:20 a.m., March 2018. You are this revolutionary space. You must be your revolution. It must come from within. Any human who chooses to be this revolution becomes their dreams. It is the power created when your old life collides with your new life. Are you facing your end, or do you know you are facing your beginning? There is a magical space that exists between these two realities. For a beginning to exist, there must be an end. The questions of why are we alive, why are we here, and why do we exist are found in the space between the beginning and the end. Perhaps most are afraid of tasting something often deemed forbidden. Perhaps.
Wow, that's fantastic, man. So the revolution is all from within.
Yes.
Yep, I totally relate to that, man. And I am a revolutionary. Without getting political, a friend of mine asked me, about this political thing or not. I go, bro, haven't you realized by now I'm a revolutionary? I mean that without and within, man. I'm interested in personal revolution. I'm interested in societal revolution because, there is so much room for improvement in both those areas. And no one's going to make it happen, but you. If it's to be, it's up to me. That's the saying, man. I'm at it, man. And so are you, bro. I love it.
If we all work together to make the world a better place for everybody, then the world becomes a better place for everybody.
Absolutely. Totally, man. And, it's a funny thing about personal development. I'm all about that, as I said, self-help, self-improvement. I alluded to it earlier when I first got into sobriety that my true personal development began then. But that's, when it comes to every person and personal development, self-improvement, they all have to start wherever they are. Whether you've been on, taking 80,000 pills of psychotropic drugs for years and you decide you want to, change, or you're still on those drugs, or you're a heroin addict living on the streets of Paris, or wherever you are, whatever's going on, the moment is always now. And whatever personal development that you want, it's completely subjective, but what you want and need. So but it's there for every person. And that's just to become their better selves. When I created my virtual coaching program, which is going to be it's going to revolutionary program. It's going to revolutionize the world. It's going to make self-help actually work instead of quitting and being distracted like what happens 99% of the time. I have great hopes for it. But when it comes to issues that you've been addressing here about, serious uphill battles, and or even dysfunction, and not dealing with, not working with a therapist or a life coach one-on-one, but doing it, maybe using a book, personal development book, like you have several published, or you take a course. How much help can a person get from that, as opposed to, working with a live actual person? What do you think?
Well, let me answer that question with a question, if I may.
I think you may.
Have fun. Page 41 of the Craig Lewis Guide to Surviving the Impossible. This question is number 3 from the Revolution Comes From Within worksheet. So Tony, just so you know up front, there's no wrong answers. Whatever you say is correct. So the question is, number 3, who were you born to be? And if you think that's a hard question, you're correct. Thankfully, that doesn't matter. So who were you born to be?
Absolutely. Totally, man. We have all the answers. We just got to ask the questions. They're very often buried within, but if we ask the questions, we'll get to them.
Excuse me, Tony. Who were you born to be?
Oh, I'm someone who's going to change the world. I'm someone who's constantly improving himself.
That's the best answer possible, because that's the truth, right?
Totally.
That's the truth. So for all those people out there in the world, no matter what is going on in your life, Tony knows me enough to know that we've been trying to make this discussion happen like live like this for a long time. And he knows that I've experienced severely fucked up things during that time period, because I let him know, right? Like, I can't shut the fuck up when things are burning down. So I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I know sometimes the best thing to do is shut the fuck up, and I don't really know how to do that, so I'm trying to get better at that. But what I also know is that all I can do is change myself in the moment and do what I have to do. I remember, Tony, when we were talking one of those times, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have no money. What I'm gonna do? Because like I can't think. I have these issues going back to my childhood about money, and then I lost all my everything. I got scared, lived homelessly. Like, I was scared. Money's fucking everything when it comes to like, where am I gonna live? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna eat? You have to deal with that shit. And we were talking one night because we were planning some things. I burnt down. I was like, I can't do this. You know what I ended up doing?
What?
I went to the bank machine, knowing I only had maybe like 100 pesos in it, like $5, which is nothing. I couldn't even get home. And I went ahead and I overdrafted my bank account, knowing that from that point on, I would feel better. I would owe the money, but I know that money would come in. So I could take that money and take care of all those immediate needs. Food, make sure I can get to my house, make sure everything was okay. I'm not going to have any issues because I have a few thousand pesos in my pocket. And then soon enough, I have to pay back all that money plus a fee. Big fucking deal. That's like harm reduction for someone like myself. So that's what I did that like last time we were talking, or no, I should say 2 times ago when we were trying to do this. When I burnt the fuck down, I was like, then I got better because I handled my shit.
Awesome. I love it. This has been a most excellent interview, a little verbal adventure, if you will. I really, really appreciate it, Craig. You got any final remarks for our audience?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to ask you, Tony, are you familiar with the band Agnostic Front?
Of course. Of course. Okay, I even know Vinny Stigma.
Well, I would like you to tell Vinny Stigma and Roger and those amazing human beings that I have been living with their songs in my heart and in my ears for as long as I can remember, since I was a kid, since all my whole crazy experience of living this crazy life started to get till today. And I like to just say that there's no justice, there's just us. And how awesome is it that here we are speaking. I didn't really know about your punk rock background, and I'm really glad that it comes together in such a beautiful way. I know you're from New York and I'm from Boston, and we know that sometimes could mean something, but I thank you from my heart for allowing me to be part of your community, like the healing community, the punk rock community, the like not towny like we have back in Boston, but like when you know what the fuck is up because you grew up in that hard way and you know those kind of ways and you learn your street code of how to be, which is obviously how you are, because I'm the same and it's obvious. Well, it's obvious that you're like me. And so I thank you for being someone who's just got a few years on me. Well, we're the same era, the same generation, right? I think. And so thank you for being part of my life, for
Thank you.
allowing me in to share with you. And I haven't even told you that I have other books.
Oh,
Well,
we're
you
gonna.
know a little bit about it.
All right,
Oh,
I'll set you up for that. I'll set you up for that. That's
excuse
great.
me. We're gonna.
That's
I'm just
that,
gonna.
that's
I'm
great
just gonna
stuff.
make
And by
believe
the
like.
way, for those listening, he cited an agnostic front song called "Blind Justice" when he still said a couple lines that were actually lyrics, and the following lines were, "There's no justice, it's just us. Street blind justice screwed all of us," and that's a great agnostic front song, which is a fantastic, very important punk band, one of the
Very
first
important.
New York hardcore bands. But and I know Roger as well, but not as well as I know Stigma. But yeah, great stuff. And you have been an extraordinary guest. I mean that truly and sincerely, because of what you bring, your perception, and we all have our own perception, but your experience, and how you decided to come from such a place of victimization and become someone who's a champion of personal development, is just extraordinary, man, and so gritty and awesome and so exemplary. People have so much they can learn from you. I absolutely advocate for you. I encourage. We're going to get into his books right now, and I know he has a special offer too. But he has a couple of books out. We've already talked about a few, but I know he has a special offer for the audience. What have you got, Craig?
Oh, you have to give me 1 second to get you this information. I was just listening to your words and feeling grateful because I really needed to hear all that beauty.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
great.
I like I straight up I go through such I feel like I'm burning down sometimes, way more than I let anyone know. And so it takes me a lot of time to be okay. And so thank you for giving me that beautiful love right there. Thank you.
Oh, I totally
Yes.
mean it.
So I have a 15% off everything on my website. And if you'll see it when you
Wow.
go there. I have
Everything.
all
That's
these
great.
everything.
That's-
I have books, which is as we've already discussed, the Craig Lewis Guide to Surviving the Impossible. I have the previous book I had, which is Better Days, a mental health recovery workbook that's available in 10 languages. And I have the You're Crazy Volumes 1 and 2, which are anthology books of punk rockers from around the world, sharing of their personal lived experience of surviving and recovering from living through with mental health addiction and trauma. And tons of t-shirts and all sorts of other cool stuff. And I live in Mexico, as I've stated, as we discussed. That's how I survive. I have ways to earn money. I have ways to live, but I'm actually trying to live better. So that's how I do it. So you can go to my website, anyone who listens to this show, and at checkout, put in the coupon code. I'm going to have it in perpetuity. Friends of Tony. So capital F, then friends of T, capital Tony. So I think you can figure that one out yourself.
Great.
All one word.
So,
all one word.
Fantastic. What a great discount and special offer that you're giving everyone. I really appreciate that. And so his website is, if I got this right, sanityisafulltimejob.org. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So sanityisafulltimejob.org. Go there to learn more about Craig. Go there to get some of his stuff. Get his books. I recommend you get at least one book. Okay, whether you're a punk rocker, whether you have you're coming out of a hardship and you're improving yourself, your personal development, your self-improvement. You've had some serious issues and you're reaching for more. Go to sanityisafulltimejob.org. Put in Friends of Tony, capital F, capital T, get 15% discount. Learn about Craig. You have so much to learn about. This is a guy who just would not say quit. He would not say uncle. He just keeps going, man, and despite his obstacles. And I tell you, listen, everybody has their cross to bear. Every single motherfucker of us, man. But some crosses are heavier than others. This guy's had a heavy cross, but he keeps going, man. And I'm really affected right now, Craig, man. I really appreciate it, man, what you're doing for yourself and for the world, man. So God bless you, bro, man. That's awesome. And I say that, of course, in the most non-religious way possible. And you're the man. I really appreciate the connection that we have and what you do and what you offer people. So keep going, brother. And I support you 100%.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing from your truth in that way. When I hear people speak like you, I a little bit more each day when I hear it, or whenever I hear it, I get better. And I forget a lot about who I am. Like we already talked about why, like how did I become right here I am, right? But I forget a lot because that's what happens when you get so hurt. Thank you for making this reminder so concrete and permanent, and not just for me to hear, but for others to hear, because the path to healing is comes from telling your story and having it be understood, and the value being seen in it. And you gave me that today, and you gave me that today in a way that's going to be known by a lot of people who are going to understand that and give a fuck about it. And when those people connect with you, and when you connect with me, and when I connect with them, that's truly how we all get a little bit better. Because as we've clearly stated, there's no justice. It's just us.
Very good. So go to sanitysafulltimejob.org, or you can email him. Should I give out your email address?
Yeah, surviving the impossible at gmail.com.
Okay, so go to the website, sanitysafulltimejob.org, or survivingtheimpossible at gmail.com to email Craig and get in contact with him. I really advocate for what he's doing. It's great stuff. Craig, we've been in contact. We've been cyber friends for like half a year now, but now that we've had this interview, man, we're friends now for sure, and we'll be staying in touch and growing it. I have no doubt. And I thank you very much. Much love to you, my friend. Great stuff. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening. And I totally recommend you go to Craig's website and get something, especially one of his books, especially on these healing books. That's where it's at. And remember, everyone, we're all responsible for ourselves, and we can all use a little help. And with that, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Craig.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. Remember to visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Self-Help Coaching Podcast.